Labor Day break over, rested, relaxed, and now back on This Week in Missouri Politics for our veto session preview, joined by 4 state legislators. Starting first time on the show, Alan K. Green, legislator here in St. Louis. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
All the way up I-44 from Springfield, Representative Crystal Quade. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you.
Friend of the show, John Wiemann. You're kind of becoming our new Alec Baldwin. You've been on all these times.
Gosh,
it's
that's
like,
an
yeah,
insult there.
it's like it's Saturday Night Live hosting, and you're on This Week in Missouri Politics. And Representative Becky Ruth, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So the biggest news of the week, I think, came midweek this week with the Speaker. Everybody's assumed he's running for state auditor. Some folks thought U.S. Senate. He ends up saying he's just going to be the Speaker and go home and not be on the ballot in 2018. What was your reaction?
I was a little disappointed to see that he wasn't going to go ahead and run for auditor. I had high hopes for him. I thought he would have been a great auditor for our state. But, you know, I think he made a good decision for himself, for his family, and he's going to be able to put our priorities at the forefront, not be worried about an auditor's race as we go into this next session.
Representative, I think when you look back on his accomplishments, passing the right to work bill, integral part of the tax cuts, done some tort reform, done things Republicans talked about for years and years and years. It came under his gavel. I think he's got a real opportunity to be the most successful Republican speaker in state history.
Without a doubt, and you know, certainly we were excited about him considering the run for state auditor. But you know, I spoke with him last night, and he was very sincere about what he told me. He said, "John, my heart wasn't in it for that race." Yep. And I believe that what he said, and I think he's doing what's best for him and his family, and you know, he's a talented person. He will be successful no matter what he does, and I'm just excited he's going to be with us for another year, focused on doing things for the state legislature and Missouri House, and it's going to be good.
Interesting thing. I do think even folks on the other side of the aisle, I think having a guy of his character in state government would have been a good thing, but having him home is probably good for his family. Looking at having a speaker that no matter how you do it, you're going to be distracted. It's a huge state. He's going to be in the legislature now. What has been your experience working with Todd?
You know, as a freshman legislator, I've been very happy with Todd. I've seen how other speakers have worked with the legislature on either side, and you know, Todd has always been willing to have conversation. You know, we may not agree on specific policy, but his door's always open, and he's willing to have dialogue, which is, as a minority party member, hugely important for us. So, as a Democrat, I'm happy he's not running for auditor. Nicole's done a great job, and I'm excited for her to continue doing that, and I think that him stepping out definitely helps with that.
I hear the word fair, integrity. He came to the job in a complex time. I think he's done the state well.
I agree. Well, I knew John Deal before John went up there and also became speaker. But then when Todd took over, actually I had access to the office of the speaker, which was pretty good for me. And then, of course, as you go in and you start talking about various policy pieces, you want to be able to have that voice. And so I will say, gave me the opportunity to go in and talk to him about various pieces of legislation, even though we didn't agree on a lot.
Sure.
I won't say that. But he did give me access to the office. I don't care if it was in the morning, early in the morning, to talk about various things in transportation and infrastructure, to looking at other pieces of policy, from right to work, prevailing wage, all of that. We had our differences, but we did talk about all of that, and he gave me access. So I appreciate that.
So with the front runner stepping aside, he turned to who might run. I think a lot of folks go to probably the most respected member of the legislature, Mike Kehoe. What do you think?
Well, certainly Mike is a capable politician. I think I've heard he's interested in running for a statewide position, and I think he'd be a very strong candidate for that position. You know, there's others. Representative Paul Kurtman is.
Representative Kurtman's talked about running for U.S. Senate. It would be a natural flip to run for state auditor. You have former Senator Kurt Schaefer, ran statewide, talked about it again. Your colleague Marcia Hafner, David Gregory, a rising star, has been mentioned. David Wassinger from in St. Louis, a businessman that's talked about running. Representative, who do you see as somebody that would be the front runner in that race?
I think definitely you've got some strong people there. When we're looking at Senator Kehoe, some of the others, I think that they all stand a pretty good chance.
It's an interesting when you have a U.S. Senate race that takes up a lot of the oxygen. Can you differentiate the two? And Nicole Galloway, accomplished person. I think most folks have done a good job. Can the Republicans, if they don't win a U.S. Senate race, can they still win an auditor's race on that same ballot?
Certainly, I think if we're going to be there's going to be a lot of people showing up at the ballot this next November because we have a lot of issues on the ballot, and I think the Republicans stand a good chance of picking up both the auditor's race and certainly the Senate race. We have solid candidates.
Because as a Democrat, is there one you'd rather not see? I mean, you look at a Mike Kehoe, served the state in many capacities, now the Senate floor leader. Or you look at a rising star like a David Gregory, is there one you'd rather not run against?
I would definitely say the senator over the two. Todd was, the speaker was definitely, I think, the largest threat.
Yeah.
And so him stepping aside is definitely a good thing for the Democrats. But, you know, Nicole has proven herself. And I think folks on both sides of the aisle have been happy with her audits. She has gone after both sides.
She's well thought of.
She really is. And so, you know, I think she's got a good chance, but definitely one of the more well-known folks I think could be a bigger threat.
Is there one you'd rather not see out of that bunch? You get Paul Kerbin, you get a Kurt Schaefer. Is there one you'd rather not see Nicole Galloway run against?
Well, you know, when I look at that particular race, when we're talking about statewide, the Democrats need to hold a seat. Mm-hmm. And that is a seat we have, and we need to hold that. And if you look at these national races, and we haven't been able to capture some of those races that we're going after, I'm looking at, again, how do we not only hold that seat, but we need Claire McCaskill's seat. We do. We need to hold that seat, and then we need to be able to grow. And we're not growing right now. We have the theory of we have the eye in the pie and that we can go after a lot of different things, which is good, like the auditor's race. I want her to hold that.
Sure.
It's good because then we can look at down the road, who else can we run statewide? But we got to be able to hold that seat. And then when we look at the national level, when we're looking at Claire McCaskill's seat, you know, I've had an opportunity to talk with Kehoe, and I'll be honest, he can raise money. And that's one of the things when you're talking about these kind of races, can you raise the money? So I'm always looking at, again, where's the money coming from and following the money.
You can raise the money because how respected he is in most all corners of the state.
Yes.
But now let's move to veto session. Now, there's obviously the sizzle, but let's talk about the policy first. You've been a leading advocate for what was that thing called HCB 3, which would have done some funds moving around and funded some elderly services. Give me the cliff notes on what that actually is.
Well, it's a very complicated conversation, so I'll do my
You got to dumb
best
it down
to make
for a simple hillbilly.
Listen, the governor made drastic cuts to services to folks with disabilities and low-income seniors for in-home care, nursing home care, consumer-directed care, and then also provider rate cuts. So when he gave us his suggested budget, there was drastic cuts that would essentially allow folks would no longer have services. And so the Senate and House went back and forth all the way to being the very last vote in the chamber of how to restore those funding cuts. And so we got about halfway there with House Committee Bill 3. We didn't restore everything that the governor cut, but we would have saved about 8,000 people to continue to have those services.
So when you look at this, does that have the chance to actually happen in special session?
I'm an optimist.
Love it.
And so since I am an optimist, I'm going to say we're going to go in and we're going to try to get some things done. When I look at, again, the effort that she put in and others put in to try to bring that money to the table and work through budget, that was a grand effort. Yeah. I can't say enough of that.
Good piece of legislation.
Absolutely.
What is the chances you're sitting in the room, they come to you, a leader in your caucus, do you think this actually happens in a special session atmosphere? Because I don't think the governor's going to call this, right?
No, I mean, I'm normally an optimistic person, and it would be nice if we could fix this problem. Well, we did fix the problem in the House. The Senate kind of messed it up on us, but certainly I know there's negotiations going on right now between the House and the Senate to try to fix the problem. If they can get that accomplished in the next couple days, I think we have a good chance of maybe getting it fixed.
But what's the chance that actually happens? I'm going to be the pessimist here and say it doesn't look like it's actually going to happen though, right?
I'm still trying to be optimistic. I think this is an issue that all of us are hearing from our constituents about. I think it's an issue that's being pushed to the forefront. We need to look at this and we need to figure out how can we fix this. So I'm going to stay on the optimistic side because I know those negotiations are going on. I think if we come in with a solid plan, there's a good chance we fix it.
Quick predictions. Does a form of this pass in a special session next week?
Wow.
Give me the upper day. So you're sticking with yes?
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to be the downer. I'll be Debbie Downer, no.
I'll probably be no unless we can come up with a deal in the next couple days.
If there's a plan in place, it does.
Let's talk about the thing that is at the forefront. That is the legislators. Wow, you know, it embarrasses the state. The last show we had before the break Talked about Senator Shapal Nadal hoping the president of the United States is assassinated. Now you had a representative, one of your colleagues, Warren Love, make some very embarrassing and awful comments. It's got to be tough to overturn an election and boot someone out of the legislature, but does it not begin to hurt the reputation of Missouri to have people like this in high office?
I think it certainly has impacted our state. Our state's made national news for several things, not just that, but it has impacted it. My take on this has been I condemned both of them for their comments. I really believe that we are held to a higher standard as elected officials, and the consequences should be the same across the board.
So if Senator Shapal Nadal is forced to leave because of what she wrote, Representative Love should leave as well. Is that what you're saying? The House?
Yeah, if what happens to one happens
to
to the other.
Well, we have a process when someone that we feel amongst our membership does something that we feel is beyond what they should do as a representative. We have a formal process that we need to go through. The ethics committee would review that. We haven't done that yet with Representative Warren. Warren Love. I think we have time this session to have that discussion, and we'll see where it goes. I think certainly if Senator Nadal is removed from office, I think the pressure is greater on Representative Love that he would have to step down.
What if it's vice versa? I've seen some Republican senators say they won't call a special session over this. It looks right now that she may stay, but if the House were to remove Representative Love, the Senate could not look worse by not responding in kind.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, just as the representative said, if we're going to do it in the House, the Senate should follow suit and vice versa. I definitely have made statements that I condemn both of them and the comments that they've made. But for me personally, this whole conversation is very frustrating because we should be talking about the negotiations over House Committee Bill 3 and focusing on the issues that Missourians are really being affected by. While this does have an effect on our the national conversation of Missouri, of course, as a policymaker, I'd much rather be having those conversations.
But there is an effect. You know economic development as well as anybody at this table. When you have people in office saying things like they hope the President of the United States is assassinated, that does not help recruit an Amazon.
No. And on a bigger scale, like you're mentioning too, it says I do business all over the country too. I have received calls from Boston and Virginia and Atlanta, and I'm like, okay, we need to be talking about business, but we're talking about what's going on Facebook, because someone made a post that need to assassinate the President of the United States. Or then when Warren, who I sat down, and I spent time in Warren's office, I'll be honest, and he's a pretty good guy, but I couldn't believe that Warren said that. This is an honor, what we do. This is an honor, and we have to take it very, very serious, what we do. I'm a historian too, besides being a business person. I love history, but I'm not gonna say we need to hang someone. I'm not gonna say we need to assassinate someone. It's very serious what we do, and we have to take that. Okay, this honor can be removed at any time. Anytime. We serve at the privilege of the community. That's what we do. And I was shocked when Warren put that on Facebook. I was shocked when Maria, the senator, put that on Facebook. Very shocked, because this is an honor that we do. We serve at the choice of the people.
Give me a prediction, will either be removed?
No.
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 Interesting. We'll be back. We'll talk about not only what happens at special session, we'll talk about the election season coming up right after this.
I've been in this industry for over 25 years, with the majority of that time here in St. Louis. At Republic Services, this is the community we serve. That's why we built a clean fleet of 130 compressed natural gas trucks. It is also why we recruit the best people and invest millions of dollars in the St. Louis area to continually upgrade our facilities. We value our community and take great pride in keeping the environment clean. Republic Services, we'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
Nobody likes power outages, including us. That's why Ameren, Missouri is investing in new equipment and smarter technology to reduce outages and keep pace with future needs. And it's working. We're in the top 25% in the nation for reliability. And on average, our rates are 18% lower than other Midwestern states. Making sure the power's there when you need it. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Let's talk a little U.S. Senate race. You have worked for Senator McCaskill.
Yes.
Now on the other side, she gets to wait for her opponent again, as she did 6 years ago. Obviously, what an amazing primary it was that she helped even maybe put her finger on the scale. This time it looks like she knows who she's going to run against in Josh Hawley. But his own supporters are now becoming a problem. Senator Danforth come out and rebuked the president, who overwhelmingly is popular in the state of Missouri. What does that do? Do you think she sits back with a knowing smile?
Well, I definitely think that it's going to be the same scenario as before, where she is going to sit back and just kind of watch and wait. But she is in the community. She's been doing town halls. We all know Claire knows how to run a race. But yeah, I think that she's at the advantage of just sitting back and kind of watching this play out.
So, what a box you're in if you're Josh Hawley. Your most high-profile supporter comes out against the guy who got more votes for President of the United States than anyone in the history of Missouri. Luckily for him, he had this long planned vacation, so when the president came, he couldn't be here. But what kind of box does that put him in, and how happy is the senator to watch these issues on the other side?
Well, I would also have to say, too, we have to be careful because, as we know, the state swings back and forth, even though it has gone red, and we have to look at that. And so when we're talking about, again, that national race, as we mentioned earlier, I have to keep my eye on that because some of the races that we've said was a given across the nation wasn't a given anymore. And so I'm very, very curious to see how Missouri is going to now move forward with Claire McCaskill. We're talking about not only the suburban, but the urban areas and the rural areas because the shifts that had occurred. And I personally would have thought the way that Donald Trump, the president, carries himself, that more Democrats would have won offices actually throughout the nation, and we're not winning. And so I'm curious, why is that happening? And I'm really trying to pay attention to get the pulse of what's going on within our own community to say, okay, why aren't we winning these races? And I don't know the answer to that.
Representative Ruth, it is a conundrum. I mean, if there's a main street in the state of Missouri, it would be Highway 67. And Donald Trump, wildly popular, swept all the Republicans in Jefferson County. I saw former Senator Danforth talk about how the party's in peril. Well, the Republican Party in Jefferson County is not in peril. When it was in peril was when he was in office in the state of Missouri. There was no Republican in Jeff County. I don't know how you can run against your president if you're Josh Hawley. I mean, whether he wins or not will have a lot to do with Donald Trump's performance.
Right, and I think Donald Trump is still wildly popular throughout the state.
Sure.
There may be small pockets here and there, but overall he still is. So I think
maybe where they went
it's
to
gonna
colleges
be,
where they grow ivy, maybe the parts he's not popular.
So yeah, I think it's going to be an issue. You know, it's still early. We could still have other folks throw their
Sure.
name in the ring and see a pretty good person come out as far as a candidate for U.S. Senate and be able to take on Claire.
John, I mean, you're an experienced, respected person in the party. I am just a simple West Butler County hillbilly. I don't know, but if I'm Josh Hawley and I look at the math and I see the guy that got more votes than anyone in the history of this state for president, and then I see Senator Danforth, I think don't you have to go to your supporter and say, can you lay off? I mean, this is how I'm going to win this.
Well, I don't know if you can tell John Danforth to lay off, but certainly.
Well, I've invited him to West Butler County for the week. And
There's
we'll
been
see if he
there's
comes.
been other well-known Republican politicians that have said not nice things about Donald Trump, and they've managed to work with him very well. I think this will blow away. Josh, this is the #1 U.S. Senate
Sure.
race in the country. There is going to be a lot of attention put on this race, a lot of money put on this race, And certainly we will see the party unify around our nominee, which I believe will be Josh Hawley, unless things change. But Senator Danforth, his remarks, I think, will fade away, and the party will unify around our nominee.
Do you see a fissure between maybe the Ivy League Republicans and maybe those Highway 67 Republicans?
One could argue that that's always been there. I don't know if it started just recently. It's always been there, but I don't think that's going to stop us from unifying behind Josh. Senator McCaskill's had a rough year this year. She's had a lot of things that not go very well for her, and hopefully we'll be in a position to take advantage of that next year in the election.
Prediction: if President Donald J. Trump visits the great state of Missouri in the next few months, is Josh Hawley on vacation or is he there?
I think he's there.
What do you think?
Oh, I think he will be.
I think he'll be there.
If he implodes like he's been doing, I wouldn't be there.
I'll bet you he's there with bells on. He's in the welcoming committee, happy as he can be to welcome the president here. Let's talk about someone we would love to welcome to Missouri, and that is Amazon. Come out, they're going to have a second headquarters, huge investment, huge jobs. Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield is every city in America is clamoring for them. What do you do in the state of Missouri to entice an Amazon? You would be the one to ask.
Oh yeah, this is good stuff. I've been reading proposals for the last 2, 3, 4 months now on, again, businesses coming into our area, from looking at the hub to, again, statewide economic development projects across the state. My mouth is savoring, I'll be honest. And when we're talking about Amazon coming into the state of Missouri and creating close to 50,000 jobs,
wow.
I'm excited.
Transformational.
Oh yeah. This is good stuff. It's better than being married. Forgive me. Anyway, that was a joke, people. I get excited when we're talking about creation of jobs and putting people back to work. That is something that we all need. I think when we're talking about now these core areas, we're losing a lot of our manufacturing businesses throughout the country. We're a service industry country right now. We have to be able to attract, I don't care, businesses from throughout the world to come back into the United States. In our local area, when we're talking about Amazon coming in, that's a plus for us. But we have to get more than Amazon. We have to look around and say, okay, when we're talking about doing business in the state of Missouri, what attracts you to be here? I get excited. I even stutter sometimes because I want it to happen so bad. But then I worry sometimes, what are the other key elements that we can fail at, especially as legislators? And how do we not do the failure part and bring in other businesses, and what carryouts do we need to offer?
When you sit down, what does the state of Missouri have to offer in Amazon?
Well, certainly we've made a lot of great strides in improving the state to make it more business friendly. We're lowering taxes. We're passing legislation, tort reform, things along that lines to make our state more business friendly. We have a lot to offer Missouri, and we have a governor.
We have the Cardinals.
We have the Cardinals,
with
number
the Chiefs.
one, and the Chiefs. But we have a governor that's motivated to bring in business, and he's working very hard. I mean, this weekend he's economic development conference down here in St. Louis, and he's working hard to try to bring in new business. And 50,000 jobs, $5 billion investment. This is a huge deal if Missouri could win this Amazon opportunity.
You mentioned tort reform. That tort reform, when we're talking about, again, going back to that Senate bill, I was not in favor of that. I'm looking at, again, these creation of jobs. But when we're talking about now that they added that piece of discrimination in that bill where we have to move things over to federal courts and things like that, I don't see that being good for business. Now, I'm pro-business. I love business. But I don't see that with that piece.
Representative Quade, is that a part? I mean, a company like Amazon, Washington has labor laws opposite of the way Missouri is going and tort laws opposite of the way Missouri is going, and they build their headquarters, I think we'd all say, all of us prime membership members would say successfully out of Seattle. Those things like that Senate Bill 43, is that the real impact? Is it creates an impression?
I think it does. And I think it goes back to our previous conversation of the impression of Missouri that we're getting on the national level. And Senate Bill 43 was something that was talked about on the national level over and over again. In fact, it's still being talked about. So I think it does play a huge factor into whether a business is going to come in. I think another really big piece is looking at the employees that we offer, and Missouri has done a very good job of offering a trained workforce, hopefully for living wage jobs. We offer a lot of folks who can fill those roles really well. So I'm optimistic about it.
I see a scenario, Representative Ruth. You could say, I mean, obviously the owner of Amazon is a very community-minded person. He bought probably the second most prestigious newspaper after the Missouri Times, obviously, but in the Washington Post. I mean, he cares about these things. The one thing I've certainly criticized the governor at times and praised him at times, you put Eric Greitens in a room with somebody, that is his zone. He is wildly talented. I would put our governor one-on-one in a room with someone over any other governor in the country. Maybe there's a way to take and convince him that you could come to an area like St. Louis that's had some division, that's had some issues, with a salesman like Eric Greitens in the room. Maybe some magic could happen.
I think so. I was there at the Economic Development Conference yesterday, and really the governor said this is going to be one of his prime roles, is to go out and attract businesses to come here. And so far, we're moving in that direction. I think the pieces of the puzzle, and when you look, you have to look at the logistics of our state. We've got 3 major highways, 2 major rivers. We're in the middle of the country. We are perfect for distribution hubs. Absolutely perfect.
That's right.
One thing,
We need a better airport. Or more,
I think we could all agree with that. Yeah.
But you know, going back to what she said too, I receive a lot of calls day in and day out, and investors are looking at our area, the state of Missouri. This is prime. We're prime to move forward. What worries me is, again, some of these things that we're talking about, again, with the stuff placed on Facebook and those kind of comments.
Not helpful.
Or what happened in Ferguson, those kind of things. I had an investor.
You question whether the state can come together and handle their issues and expel those members, or if there's not the leadership to do it.
Those are
Let me
questions.
ask, but we always have let's end on a high note, with a minute left, who won the week?
Well, I'm going to say the city of Houston and our country coming together with the flood and all of the terror that happened, and then also hopefully Florida will be a nice curate, but we can say we can come together and support that.
Yeah. Who won the week?
I'm going to say Auditor Nicole Galloway.
I think practically you probably hit the nail on the head there.
I'm going to go with my new hometown NFL team, the Kansas City Chiefs, beating the Patriots.
It's so fun to root for a winning team. You're used to rooting for the Rams.
My new home team.
We get rid of losers. The Chiefs are great to root for. Who won the week?
I'm going to say Mr. Robert Wagner, who is a World War II veteran, turned 100 years old last Sunday, and the Kirkwood Police Department and Fire Department helped to give him a surprise party. They picked him up in a World War II Jeep, took him to his party. The fire department had the flag there hanging down. This guy had 3 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star, and we don't have very many of our World War II veterans around.
Outstanding.
So.
I'm going to say Amber Richardson. People think, and the folks here know, but the spouses do so much to let people serve, especially when you live 4 hours from the state capitol. And while the state may lose a person that is of the highest integrity, the Richardson family keeps them. So I'm going to say Amber Richardson won the week. We hope you'll win the week. We'll be back here next week on This Week in Missouri Politics. We'll talk veto session. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.